Welcome to Whispers of Nafsia, the podcast where we dive deep into the heart of mental health, healing, and personal growth. I'm Asya, one of the hosts, and I'm here with my incredible team, which is dedicated to creating a safe space for open conversations about mental health, because everyone deserves to feel seen, heard, and supported. I'd like to remind our listeners that the views and opinions shared on Whispers of Nafsia are personal perspectives meant to encourage thought and conversation. Any advice or insights offered by myself or the team are based on our own experiences and research. When we do refer to Islamic teachings, we ensure to reference the knowledge of qualified scholars, and any professional guidance shared comes directly from experienced professionals. If you're seeking specific advice for your situation, we encourage you to consult a trusted professional or scholar for personalized support. Thank you for understanding. Welcome back to part 2 of our Shaadi and Struggle series with Sheikh Weil. If you tuned into part 1, you know we covered the early challenges of marriage, from communication struggles to faith-based strategies for handling conflict. If you haven't heard it yet, we highly recommend going back and giving it a listen. Today, we're going to discuss a topic many couples know all too well: in-laws. We'll talk about boundaries, expectations, and how to navigate those complex dynamics with both Islamic guidance and mental health in mind. So let's get right into it.
So I think everything we have said, it's so focused on husband and wife.
Yeah.
Yes? The reality is that a large part of the NGL answers were about issues people were facing when dealing with in-laws. So I think that that's a topic we do need to talk about. I did want to give some stats, as always. So I do want to point out, I think this stat is very good for our audience more than anyone else. And it was that when spouses prioritized one another in their marriages, they had a 75% chance of success, of long-term success. And I think that is a huge and important take. And honestly, I believe that this aligns deeply with the Islamic principles we've grown up with, where the marital bond is meant to be protected, cherished, and prioritized. Now, we live in a society where our culture is into nuclear families. Not all, but some. And I do actually see the trend changing, but everyone has a different take on it. And while I know opinions may vary, I do want to stay grounded in one core idea. Your marriage comes first. But because of our cultural conditioning, setting boundaries, particularly with the structure of a nuclear or joint family, can feel emotionally challenging or even taboo. Let me give an example from our own experience. We've been married for nearly 15 years, and from the beginning, we've lived in a nuclear family setup. I think over time, and of course this has taken time, but one thing I truly appreciated is that within our extended family, there is a very mutual respect where we recognize that our family unit is our family unit and our in-laws have theirs. Even when we all come together, it starts with what did we agree upon as a couple, not as a family altogether. That sense of autonomy, I think, has made a huge difference. But there is a deeper therapeutic insight that I want to offer. It's that from a psychoeducational perspective, boundaries are not seen as a form of disrespect. I know this is how it comes off, but they really aren't. They're actually a form of protection. In fact, what boundaries do is that they allow relationships to flourish without burnout. In therapy, we talk about the difference between enmeshment and healthy individuation. And enmeshment is like, as you understand the word, when family roles, expectations, or things like guilt are so entangled that there is no room to breathe, hence the burnout. Whereas healthy individuation, on the other hand, is the process of honoring those family ties while still creating that emotional safety and autonomy as a couple. So setting those boundaries isn't necessarily selfish. It can be very sacred. It allows the couple to define what their marriage needs and what they want so that they can thrive while still being respectful and caring to their extended family. So when we talk about boundary setting being hard in a nuclear or joint family, I want to really affirm and validate that yes, it is hard especially when guilt or culture or expectations are involved. But it is also very necessary, and there are tools that can help make that process more approachable, respectful, and sustainable. So if we are breaking this down further, especially from an Islamic perspective, I do want to know, what does Islam say about nuclear family living? And for those who are living in this setup, how do we respect each other's rights and needs? How do we make it work? Not just tolerably, but work well for everyone involved.
That's a very good concern and very interesting concern. First of all, I would start off by saying, what does Islam say about living in a nuclear family, like you mentioned? Islam says it's strongly not recommended. Okay? So that's one thing that we have to understand. It's strongly not recommended. It's makruh. Yes. I said strongly not recommended, strongly makruh. Even the fiqh perspective is very clear about that. Now, there are some cases, for example, when there might be an exception. So, for example, let's say it's the only son, and his parents grew old, right? And there's nowhere else for them to stay, obviously, then no, it is good for them to stay with him, and it's good for him. It's wajib upon him to take care of them. It's not wajib upon him to put them in his house, but to take care of them. And of course, putting them in the house is more often something very valuable, no doubt. But having that said, you have to create your own space with your wife. There's no doubt about it. For example, what you need to do is that you also, just like you have created your own culture in the house, you need to also set certain boundaries in that house. So, for example, you don't always, like, for example, let's say they have their own space. It's the basement, right? And let's say you have the master bedroom, right? You don't always have to be with them every single night. So, for example, I hear sometimes in certain cultures, like, I don't know, in cultures where they live all together, that it's disrespectful for the wife to even go upstairs and sit by herself if the parents are still. But it doesn't make sense. No, you don't have to do that. No, you need your own space. You need your own privacy. You just want to sit down by yourself. You just want to watch TV or talk to a friend or talk to your parents or even talk to your husband. You want to sit down and watch a movie with your husband. You don't want to do that to the in-laws. I'm not saying that, totally neglect them, but at the same time, try to understand that you have to have your own space. You have to have your own space. I do not vouch for even their own bedroom to be close to your bedroom. This is not something I would recommend whatsoever. Absolutely whatsoever. Because at the end of the day, there's that sense of shame. And if you have a bathroom in the house and if you're staying in the master bedroom, they're going to hear the shower or so forth. It's not going to look good to you. It is something that's going to affect your intimate life with your husband. And this is something wrong. You shouldn't be doing this. So always create your own space. So we're talking about if we have to deal with this situation. When it comes to children, be very careful, because at the end of the day, you and your husband are the ones that are going to be raising those children. If the in-laws are going to be raising them the way they want and interfering in them in the way they want, that's going to affect the child. And that's going to affect his upbringing. Now, on the other hand, I'm saying do not be too uptight as a parent. Like, for God's sake, no. Like, listen, every child, we were children one day. We always wanted to be spoiled by the grandfather, right? The grandma. Sometimes accept things, let go of things. Be very smart. Pick and choose your battles, right? Don't fight every battle. And at the same time, don't let go of everything, right? Don't be too mellow and ease and lean and be like, oh, you do what? No, right? And at the same time, do not be too uptight that every time your in-laws do something, oh my God, you're on their case, right? You're on their case. So that's one thing. And of course, if I was speaking to in-laws, then I really think that this is the conversation that needs to be done. But listen, we have to accept one thing, is that sometimes parents get to a certain age where they're not going to change. We just need to acquire patience, and we have to. On the other hand, I would say create time with your spouse to be able to maintain privacy. So like go out for dinners, go out for drives. Right? Sometimes that's what you just want to do. You just want to go out for a drive. Go out for drives. Always look good for your husband. Look like I'll be very frank and honest and open in this. Look like $1 million for your husband all the time. Vacations, if you're able to afford them, why not? On certain occasions, go to a hotel room. You know what I'm trying to say? So create that space for you and your spouse if that was the case. For example, take the positive perspective of having your in-laws. Meaning what? Okay, so someone can stay with the kids. So then I can go away with him, for the weekend or so forth. Yeah. So that's something needs to happen in this regard. It needs to happen. It will create a better mood between the couple themselves.
Going back to where you said that women should look like $1 million when their husbands come home. Sure, sounds easy enough, right? But it's not. For those living in a joint family system, how are you meant to look like $1 million when you live with more than your spouse and your children? Because besides that, I think for women to physically invest in themselves, they really require mental peace. Women cannot be intimate inside the bedroom if they haven't been able to connect outside of it. And it's very hard to connect when you're living in a nuclear family. I think privacy is really important in a marriage. And just to give the audience perspective, we live with my in-laws and alhamdulillah, we do have our own space. And that's tremendously helped me. It has helped our marriage and it's helped our relationships within the household. So I think, in my opinion, it's imperative that a couple have their own assigned living quarters or a space where they can, enjoy the privacy of feeling like they're in their own home.
Yeah. So that's something needs to happen. You need your own space. You need your own privacy.
I want to go deeper into this because there are a lot of aspects that go into it. Women often find themselves in situations where their husband is constantly placed in the middle between his own family and his wife. And the emotional pressure that places on men to choose a side, it creates insane guilt, internal conflict, and puts a lot of strain on the relationship. And we heard this repeatedly in the stories shared with us. Whether it was about taking a vacation or setting a limit, the common denominator was always guilt. And it almost always put the husband in a position of something that we like to call emotional triangulation. This is something where when usually a third person, a parent or an in-law, is pulled into the couple's dynamic. And what ends up happening is that instead of addressing the issue directly, the couple redirects their stress or validation seeking onto someone else. So how do we create a situation where in-laws understand their place in the marriage and the couple understands theirs? How can we get a couple to start affirming that we are a team, we're allowed to have privacy, shared decision-making, and space from that guilt? And how can we still do that while honoring our elders?
Listen, realistically speaking, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Allah does not change the state of people and the condition of people unless they want to decide to change. You got my point? We cannot just give a fatwa. I know that sometimes people are frustrated to a point that maybe they just want to hear a fatwa. Be like, hey, listen, can we get a fatwa saying that's haram for you? There isn't. These are ethical and logical perspectives that should be a given. They should come from the human being themselves. Do you got my point? I mean, we need to have more conversations about it. We need to have more awareness programs about it. We need to explain to people publicly the negative effects of such interventions. We need to explain to people publicly what really happens to your son or to your daughter if you're going to put them under that peer pressure of always feeling that guilt. Like you always need to favor your parents in everything and anything. And every time you need to take her out, you need to take out your mother with you or so forth. And you know what I'm trying to say? They need to understand that. I mean, is it going to happen that they're going to change on the spot? No. I've said it in my lecture. Any woman that's married, even if she is in this situation, she has absolutely every God-given right, fiqh right, to tell her husband, hey, listen, even if it was a one-bedroom, just I want to live by myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there are many ways we can shift this. And I just want to add a little bit of information or, just give a little bit of a tool on how we can do these kind of things. So the way to shift it is literally by naming the issue. When a couple is getting into it, they can ask themselves, are we discussing our issue or is someone else's opinion being placed between us? And recentering that conversation. What do we want as a couple, regardless of outside expectations? When you're working as a team, it is much easier to face the outside world than when you're working against one another. And this really builds unity in the marriage, and it creates less space for guilt to dominate. It also signals to your family, your extended family, your friends, that you as a couple operate as a unit, not in opposition of one another. There's also another thing where it's more like a guided conversation, and it's asking yourselves, what is our vision for this marriage? What boundaries do we need to help protect our peace and connection? How can we support one another when there are these pressures that cannot necessarily change? And when a couple has this strong shared narrative, it becomes much easier to face outside pressures without turning on each other. Let's talk about one of the most common and emotionally loaded situations that couples face: asking for space in a way that doesn't sound like an ultimatum. I've seen this, we've all seen this happen time and time again with couples where one partner, and it's often the wife, reaches a point where she feels overwhelmed, unseen, or emotionally depleted. And she says something like, I love you, but I can't keep living like this. I need my own space. And for this marriage to work, we need our own space. And understandably, the husband hears that, and all he hears is, you're making me choose between you and my parents. It feels like an ultimatum, even when that wasn't the intention. How do you avoid conflict between the couple then?
You know what? In this regard, I would say you need to first of all let him see and get convinced that this is not something personal. You know what I mean? This is, and that can only happen, unfortunately sometimes, is that if he's only seen you enduring a lot, right? Now, but not to the point where you totally let him feel that, oh, okay, you can deal with it, right? You can deal with it. It's okay. We can stay in the same situation. You can deal with it. That might happen sometimes. No, you shouldn't do that. But you need to just simply be very honest and straight with him and tell him, listen, this has nothing to do with even who your parents are. You know what I mean? This simply has to do with me asking for my God-given right. This is my God-given right. Listen, there's a difference between asking for your right and expecting something to be your right. When you're asking for your right, this is your right. If he was deceived, hopefully he does. If he tells you, no, I'm not willing to even look into any solution. You know, I remember I was sitting with a couple, and the wife was like, I'll leave you for your basement. How about you and I for your basement? I thought it's to make money, and that's a money-hungry person.
Sheikh, sorry, I think the mic actually cut out for a second. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat what you said. I think you were referring to a couple where a wife is stating that, you know, she'll even move to the basement if that will help things. And, you know, that way they get their own space as a couple. And the husband decides that that's not something he wants to do. Instead, he wants to rent out the basement to earn some extra income.
Yeah, listen, quote me on this. A woman can handle any trait in it except for stinginess. The thing that a woman can handle the most is stinginess. If a man is stingy, she will handle him being poor but generous.
Yeah.
Right? Because a generous person is brave. A generous person is protective. She can handle poverty, but if he's generous, she will feel disgusted from her man. If he is stingy, he's a miser, she will feel disgust. The Prophet ﷺ says, a mu'min can neither be stingy nor a coward. He says that they don't match with iman, with belief. So can you imagine that? So this is what happens. So sometimes people tend to just be very money hungry. And it happens a lot. And I'll be very frank and honest. I've seen it on numerous occasions in all communities. You know, people that come to this country, they immigrate, and to them it's an opportunity to make money and grow financially. That's why they want to live all together in one house so they can save, you know, and save more and grow more financially while their marriage is at stake. And there's something that I would like to say. And a lot of people like to, you know, people like to live in denial, by the way. The truth is, there's many things that are happening in a marriage where sometimes neither one of the couple is aware of.
Mm.
And it gets to a point where there's a lot of haram being involved. It gets to a point where the fiqh boundaries are not being taken into consideration. Fiqh rulings are not being taken into consideration.
Yeah.
So I think when it comes to family for women who, number one, lives with the in-laws, number one, she's giving up something of that her right.
Yeah.
To have her own space. So she's already doing something over. So I think it's the son's responsibility at that time to provide that privacy.
Yeah.
In that case, where he can maybe give her, like, you can have 2 stories.
Yes.
This is yours.
There's many solutions.
So there's a lot of solutions, because sometimes what happens is, I think the newer generation is all going to go with this. You have your own life, do your own thing. I think the older generation sometimes have this thing about, we want our son to take care of us, or we want our son to be close to us. And at that time, it takes that son it puts the son in a position where he doesn't want to say, no, I can do that. It's easier when the parents say, okay, go do your thing.
Listen,
Have a life, right? But then when you feel guilty, it can put the son in a position of saying, I
True.
want to leave. So I feel in that situation, it's the best for the son to draw those boundaries for the wife, because the wife is not going to say things to your parents. So you as the son have to draw those boundaries, saying, okay, these are the things that's going to happen. And now, as you said earlier, you are the ones protecting her. She protects you, you protect her. So you have to have her back, provide the privacy to the best you probably can for her.
you see, your question was very direct, meaning how can she convince her husband with that? Realistically, you can try. It gets to a point where if that's what you want, you need to put your foot down and say, no, I do demand my religious right of having my own space. You can do that. You can do that. On the other hand, though, what you said is true. You see, I've always said this in marriage. Each one has to fight their own battle. In what sense? One of the biggest mistakes that sometimes couples expect from each other, that, oh, my mom said something to you, well, why don't you say something back? No. You're supposed to say something back to your mom. Your mom said something to me, no, you're supposed to say something back to your mom. You got my point? You need to sit her down and say, please don't talk to her this way. It's not right. It's hurtful. It's so forth. You went through probably the same thing and so forth. So this is something important to understand. You know what I mean? And like I said, provide the alternative. Like there's many solutions that you can you can live in a duplex home. You can live in a side-by-side, the semi-detached. So many solutions that you can provide in this, if you are able to. But if you're not, which I've dealt with many cases, like I said, that no, they would rather that semi-detached is rented and they're making money out of it. And sometimes even the parents, they come and tell them, no, don't spend your money. Don't spend your money. There are cases, my friend, that some husbands do not allow their wives to even know what's in their bank accounts. They don't have a copy of their credit card, yet the mom and the dad that are living with them have the copy of the credit card. And they're allowed to spend as much as they can, but not the wife. It's not a wife. I don't even think it's a slave. That's someone that you disgust, you disrespect. That's something, we call it in, I don't know if you guys have the same word in Urdu. It's called zillat. Zillat. You know what I mean? Like that means, you just went and knocked on someone's door and be like, hey, I would like to insult and humiliate your daughter. Would you like to marry her off to me? So these are things that you should not accept. On the other hand, I really, really believe that the parents of the girl need to step in sometimes. There is something in your culture which I do not understand. Again, please forgive me if I'm saying, but, like I'll give you an example. You see, in your culture, Kojak, Pakistani, when a father marries off his daughter, that's it. She's gone. Like, he's totally involved in anything. She could be going through hell. Deal with it. It's okay. Have sabr. What do you mean have sabr? What do you mean? No. What do you mean have sabr? That's no. Allah doesn't tell you this. I'll tell you something, an example of my culture. The father is too involved. There's two extremes are wrong. But I was put on the spot one time. Do you know what a Lebanese father would do if he knows that his daughter is getting abused? in any form and shape. In any form and shape. It doesn't have to be physical only. I'm not going to lie to you. In my culture, unfortunately, we go to the opposite extreme. We go like, yeah, you know what? Oh, and I was put on the spot one time. A father-in-law asked me, he said, Molana, okay, what would you do if that was your daughter? A father-in-law who, his daughter-in-law is getting abused. And then I gave up. I told him at the end, if you're not going to see it, and if you just keep kind of telling me it's okay, what if she has sabr? We all went through this. I'm like, if you're going to keep on telling me this BS, which is the Catholic version of Islam, whoever slaps you on the right, turn the left, it doesn't exist. I don't believe in a God that says that, by the way. I do not believe it. Doesn't exist. Right? You know, if you're going to say, I'm going to tell you the truth. And then he's like, what would you do if that was your daughter? Wouldn't you want to keep her marriage? I'm like, no. You know what I would do? I'd forget the fact that I'm a sheikh and I'll become Lebanese. I'll go show up there, you know, hopefully with one of the guns that we own. And then I'll literally just tell my son-in-law, whenever you decide to become a man, come and marry my daughter again. That's the truth. I'll be honest with you. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe it's jahalat. But no, I don't believe I would accept from my daughter to, listen, tell me that her husband is doing this to her and she still loves him, I'll shut my mouth. As I said earlier, both of you, do whatever you want with each other. I don't care. That's your business. That's you and your husband.
I think it all boils down to what Hussein said, what you said, that it's all about education, right?
Yeah.
Learning the rights of your wife and providing it to her at the best of your abilities. But also, I think, Hussein, I really enjoyed what you said, is giving her rights in a way like you're supportive.
No, it's absolutely true, right? It's the fact that you're not just ignoring it. You as a husband, you're truly listening to your wife and acknowledging her concerns and standing by her side and giving her your support.
It's not just about ticking off rights on a list. It's about how you give those rights, with support, with presence, with intention. And this connects directly to something that kept coming up over and over again in the stories and questions we received, the feeling that women are alone in the struggle, alone in dealing with family dynamics, in-laws, children, boundaries. And honestly, so often, it's not even the situation itself that breaks a person down. It's the feeling that they're carrying it alone. We've seen this countless times, and especially with our work with couples, the one partner, most likely the wife, always feels stuck. Maybe it's the in-laws, maybe it's the living situation, the pressure, the guilt. And when she finally finds the courage to express her needs, what she really needs isn't some grand solution overnight. We all know life doesn't work like that. But sometimes what she does need is to know that her partner sees her, hears her, and is standing beside her. But here's where I see things get missed again and again, and I can't stress this enough. Tone matters. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it. You can tell your partner, I support you. But if your tone is cold, distracted, or frustrated, the words just don't land. And when your tone is gentle, grounded, open, even the simplest of words can feel like a lifeline in that moment. When a partner calmly says, I see you, I hear you, I know how hard this is, and I'm really trying, it creates an incredible emotional buffer. It doesn't mean that the problem is magically fixed, but suddenly you're not carrying that weight alone.
I absolutely agree. I think we really underestimate the value of our words and the weight they carry in a marriage. Just hearing, I see you, I know this is hard, it can be so powerful. It's not about solving everything, it's about reminding your spouse that they're not alone. And I know even though we're focusing on situations where you're living with your in-laws in a joint family, this kind of support is just as important in any marriage dynamic, whether you live in a joint home or not. It's about showing up emotionally, verbally, and intentionally for each other.
And since we're on this topic, I want to share a few things we can do to show up for each other. Not just through words, but through tone, body language, and action. And honestly, these aren't just tools for marriage. They apply to all relationships. To be very honest, emotional validation is the first one, and our culture and generations are thankfully getting better at this. We still have work to do, and I hope we continue to do it. But before we jump into any solutions, just sit with your partner's feelings and let your tone show that you care. Slow down, soften your voice, make that eye contact. You can say things like, I can see this has been exhausting for you. I hear how isolated you felt, and I'm sorry it's felt like you've had to face this alone. This type of validation, It lowers defenses and it can help build trust. The other part of it is that language and tone work hand in hand. Make sure your concerns are a shared challenge, not an individual blame game. Instead of saying in a frustrated tone, "You have a problem with my family," soften the delivery and reframe it. Say things like, "We are facing a situation with our families and I want to work through it with you. We are facing a situation with our families and I want to work through it with you." That simple shift, both in words and tone, lowers the walls immediately. Even when the solutions take time, it gives you a sense of protection and makes all the difference. And I really want to talk about something that's so small but so important. It's little micro actions of support. It's the little things done consistently that reinforce your presence. Check in privately after a tense family interaction. "Hey, are you okay? That seemed really heavy. Let's talk about it." Create that quiet time together to decompress. Or physically stand beside your partner, literally, verbally, during those tough conversations. These gestures really show that you're there, you're choosing them, and you're seeing their struggle. I just want to remind couples that the goal isn't to fix every family dynamic overnight. That's rarely realistic, and it's hard to achieve that, and it does take a little bit of struggle and chaos. But in that timing, the goal is to build such a visible and steady partnership that neither person feels abandoned within those challenges. When your words, your tone, your action all align to say you're not alone, you create a space where both of you can breathe and face the hard parts together and protect what you've already built.
If I were to be realistic with you, to be honest with you, I'm a big believer in plowing the issue from its roots, solving it. If you want solutions, listen, there's some human beings that don't want solutions. They want someone to vent to. So if you want solutions, and that's why this is the first thing I ask both a husband and a wife. When they come to me with an issue, I ask them directly, what do you want? Do you want solutions? Or you just want oh, okay, it's all right. Let's work on this and let's work on that. And then no. But if you want solutions, then you have to plow the issue from its roots. And then you have to look for where the issue is. And then try to solve it. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? What you're saying, with all due respect, again, no offense at all, in fact, but
of course.
That's therapy. That's therapy. Yes. I'm sorry, that is therapy. That is therapy. Okay, yeah, I'll make you sit down and spend your money.
Validation.
Yeah, exactly. It is more than validation and solution. It's, oh my God, okay, yeah, are you serious?
Yeah.
No, and I've seen it and I've read books about psychology where one of the best things that you're trained to do is to repeat what people tell you. I'm going through this. Oh my God, you're going through this. Yeah.
You're right. It is to validate, but I think part of it is also, I will give you the tools. You have to, like you said, you have to fight your own battles. I have to give you the tools to make your own decisions. I cannot be someone you depend on to make those decisions for you. And that's therapy in general. Every problem you come to me with, I will give you the tools to be able to deal with it. Now it's on you to take them or not to take them.
Because this is the whole notion of there's more money in the treatment than there is in the cure.
If we are going fishing, right? The old saying that we all know.
Yeah. Right.
Teach a man how to fish, he'll have fish for the rest of his life. Give him a fish and he'll have fish only for a day.
Okay.
Yeah. I think if I don't, let's say when we have couples who come to us, right? And if they are not given the tools on how to deal with a certain situation or how to deal with conflict in general, they will never be able to deal with conflict ever whenever it comes up. So that's what I'm saying.
I really think what's happening is that I'm sitting right next to a man who's fishing, but he's not knowing how to fish, and his rope is not long enough that reaches down. But I'm just telling him, you know what? It's okay. Keep trying. Keep trying. You know what I'm trying to say? Because this is what ends up happening the majority of the... And listen, again, this is... what I'm saying, that this is how the industry is based. I've been told this, subhanAllah. No, I'm not saying it's not right. No, there is a right form of therapy. One of the most very well-known therapists that I listen to personally, Jassim Lantawa, he's from Dubai. And he did present that notion of psychology with Deen. And he's doing a great job. And he's doing a great job with couples therapy. I believe that totally. But he does say that. It's solutions. Listen, it's one thing for me to teach you how to make a decision. And it's one thing for me to tell you the solution. And it's a whole other thing for me to come and do it for you. But I need to be honest with you. I need to be truthful with you. Listen, I do what you do sometimes. I just gave you an example. That sometimes, you know what? I see it. It's right there. Don't you think there were times that I like to sit there, a person sits in front of me and I'll be like, you know what, buddy, you're an idiot. But I don't want to say it, but I can't say this. You know what I'm trying to say? Or no, I'm not. You are choosing to be an idiot. You are choosing to be a fool.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But I can't. No. But in reality, there are times that people are asking for the truth. They need to know what do I need to do? And I tell them, I cannot tell you what to do, but I can tell you the solution for this issue should be 1, 2, 3. I can tell you that the solution is to move out, but I can't tell you have to move out. And unfortunately, some people are selfish like that. Some patients are selfish. Like I said earlier, they want a fatwa.
I completely agree that sometimes the solution isn't just adjusting within the system or the family. It's also recognizing when the system itself isn't working anymore. And that's also where therapy plays a role. It's not just by validating feelings, but by helping couples make these intentional, healthy decisions, including stepping away from the nuclear family setup if that's what's needed for their well-being. In therapy, we help couples unpack the guilt, the fear, the family expectations that often make those decisions feel impossible. We guide them through really hard conversations by exploring questions like, is our current living situation harming our marriage or our individual mental health? What are the emotional, financial, and relational consequences of staying versus leaving? What cultural, religious, or family beliefs are making this decision harder? And are those beliefs realistic, unrealistic, Islamic, non-Islamic? We don't tell them what to do, but we definitely equip them with the tools to communicate clearly, set those healthy boundaries, and when necessary, make the well-planned transition to a different living arrangement. Now, whether that means moving to their own space within the same house, relocating entirely, or restructuring their support system, it helps them be able to make those decisions. And it's being able to do that without disrespecting the family or running away from that responsibility. It's really about honing it into the protection of the foundation of their marriage, because if their marriage collapses, the whole thing collapses, right? The parents suffer, children suffer, everyone suffers. So in that sense, therapy does provide real structured solutions for these couples. And we don't leave couples hanging once they do make that choice. We also work on building those skills for independence, because at that point, it's a different dynamic now. We help them understand how to manage those finances, setting right and healthy boundaries with their extended family, and creating those strong emotional support systems even outside their home.
I really love that we've been given this space to clear up some of these misconceptions around therapy, like what it's really for and how it can actually help. And at the same time, we're getting to talk about that cultural tendency to want everything laid out in black and white, like needing a fatwa before we can take an actual step forward in the right direction.
The fatwa is because, like Hussein mentioned, the guilt tripping that comes from...
But I'm sorry, that's wrong. Guilt tripping, no. You need to understand that, and you need to understand that you need to get rid of it. Because if you don't, your son is going to go through it. Your daughter's going to go through it. It's just going to be that cycle that's never ending. SubhanAllah, last night, it was the last night or the night before, I was still with a couple of uncles. And I was telling them, I remember one time I sat down with my friend's mom. And his wife is going through hell. And I sat down with his mom one time. I said, why? She said, that's what happened to me. What's the big deal? And I said, when it happened to you, how did you feel? She said, I felt crazy. I said, all the time you sit me down, they start bringing up, still not over it. Are still not over the fact that on your honeymoon, your sisters-in-law had to be with you. You know what's so funny though? It's subhanAllah, you and I can sit down and laugh about it. Could you imagine being in her spot?
Hard, yeah, horrible.
I told her, I said, you even tell me how you remember that they would not even allow you to sit next to your husband on the plane. Could you imagine that? And you're still not over it until this day. I'm like, you're doing the same to your daughter-in-law.
This is punishing her.
She said, exactly. And that's why I'm saying that sometimes you do need solutions, but we can't give you a fatwa. We can't tell you it's haram on you. No, it doesn't exist. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ. That's a very interesting riwayah. A man came to the Prophet ﷺ and he told him, Ya Rasulullah, I'm having issues with my wife, but I love her. He said, okay, tell me those issues. He said, she does things that are immoral. He said, well, why don't you bring it up with her? Why don't you punish her? Teach her a lesson. He said, I can't, I love her. He said, okay. He said, is that it? He said, no. Sometimes I see men walking into my house when I'm not there. He said, and what do you want to do about it? He said, I love her. He said, does it develop more? He says, yes. And Rasulullah told him, and you know. He says, yes, but I can't leave her. He said, then stay with her. What do you want me to tell you? The Prophet himself, he's not going to give you a fatwa. He's not going to come to, no, he called him a name. There's a name, there's a chapter in fiqh about men such as, you know what I mean? Even the Prophet himself, he told him, you know what, well, just stay with her. Okay, well, what do you want me to tell you? But in reality, that did not prevent the Prophet from telling him what he is.
So I think then in that situation, this is why girls nowadays, or even in nuclear families or whatever it is, are struggling, because it's my mom didn't know and she didn't know. It's a generational.
It is. It's a cycle that's just, as I said, like just like it's a cycle of abuse, it's a cycle of ignorance, and it's a cycle of the same exact statement. Just have sabr, be patient, and it's okay, and things are trivial, and dua, and this. No, I'm sorry. I disagree with this. You know, if it didn't work for all these years, sometimes I'm sorry. We have too much expectations.
Yeah.
In this regard and in this term. No, sometimes you need to change a state or just literally accept it. That's it. Or just accept it. You know what I mean? And then don't complain about it.
Please complain. Come to therapy and complain.
Yeah. No. Because the thing is that, listen, and would you agree with me if I say, and I've said this before as an advice. You see, I refuse to be, I am, if I may say, but I refuse, if I were to give someone advice, do not be someone else's garbage truck. And what I mean? See, everybody loves a garbage truck. We all love the garbage truck. We wait for the garbage truck. We look forward for garbage day, right? Why? Because you see, we empty the garbage from our homes and then we load it on the garbage truck. We unload it from our home and then we just load it to the garbage truck. And then we wait for the garbage truck. But yeah, guess what? Go along with our garbage. See, and that's exactly how some people want you to be for them. They want to sit down and they just want to complain. They want to empty and unload that garbage on you. You will walk away with that baggage. They're done. They emptied the garbage. You got my point? You will walk away with that baggage. You're the one who's going to suffer. So yeah, there are people that refuse to change, and all what they want is just want to vent out. I call them asshole. Yeah. You know what's an asshole? Is that friend that constantly asks you for advice, yet goes and does the exact opposite of it. That's an asshole. Yeah.
I can't say I've heard that before, but I do think we've all been there. We've all been someone's garbage truck at some point, and honestly, if we're being real, we've probably dumped on others too. Maybe not intentionally, but sometimes we're just not ready to take in any advice. Be it because we're unsure or second-guessing how relevant or accurate it is in that moment. But hopefully, today's conversation has helped open up some new ways of thinking and gives our listeners real tools to navigate those situations with more clarity and more care. Well, that's it for part 2 of Shaadi and Struggles with Sheikh Wael. We talked about marriage dynamics, in-laws, and the very real challenges so many couples face. We hope we've been able to shed light on the Islamic perspective and offer support and the right strategy and tools that are both practical and faith-aligned. We've got one more part left, and trust us, it's a good one. We're diving into unrealistic expectations and gender roles from both cultural and Islamic angles. It gets real, so don't miss it. We hope you'll join us, inshallah. Thanks for listening in.